Good morning. My name is Jay Rosenthal, and I'm the Managing Director of Business of Cannabis. Welcome to the Cannabis Daily Show for Wednesday, April 12th, 2022. Since 2017, we've highlighted the companies, brands, people, and trends driving the cannabis industry, and that's what we look to do here every day. We'd love to hear from you in the comments, and always feel free to visit us on our website at businessofcannabis.com, as well as through all of our social channels, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please do subscribe to our channel. After the rundown of the key stories we're following, we'll get to our BofC Live segment, where today we'll be joined by Daffyd Roderick. He is the Senior Director, Communications and Social Responsibility at the Ontario Cannabis Store. We want to chat with him to talk about the results of recent tests into the potency and consistency of legacy versus legal edibles here in Ontario. Of note, in September, we'll be in New York for Business of Cannabis New York, a 2-day event. There's more information on that below. It's going to be our biggest event of the year, so please do check that out. For today's stories, Canada is readying to shrink the illicit market. One of the Fab Four is getting into 420. Fraudulent cannabis lab testing in the U.S. and European cannabis is looking for more North American investment. For our first story, the federal government in Canada shared its plan to create a cannabis strategy table that came out in its 2022 budget, which would create a new line of communication between the industry and regulators. This in a story from the Globe and Mail. Many in the industry have blamed disappointing corporate results on high taxes and low potency limits, which still divert consumers to the unregulated market, which we will hear about later with our conversation with Daffyd Roderick from the OCS. It says to me that the folks in Ottawa are finally realizing that the cannabis industry, for all its ups and downs, has become a key economic driver. That is a quote from Omar Khan, Senior Vice President of Corporate and Public Affairs at cannabis retailer High Tide. He's a frequent guest on Business of Cannabis. You can seek him out on our website as well. For our second story, cannabis company Dadgrass has partnered with the estate of Beatles guitarist George Harrison to launch a new brand, All Things Must Grass. This in a story in Forbes. Dadgrass co-founder Ben Starmer said it's the perfect partnership since his company is all about the classics. Quote, instead of following trends, we're kind of a throwback to the good old days. We keep things easy and dependable, never fancy or complicated, the way smoking grass used to be back when George recorded his 1970 album, All Things Must Pass. For our third story, each legal cannabis state in the U.S. has its own approach to lab testing, which has created some striking inconsistencies, according to a paper by Cindy Orser, who is a PhD, and she wrote about it in the Cannabis Industry Journal. Some of those striking inconsistencies include pesticides and how microbial contaminants are tested. And without federal oversight, some commit varying levels of fraud, such as collusion with cultivators and processors to inflate THC potency, agreeing to pass for contaminants to retain clients, so agreeing to basically give a pass. Here's the takeaway. Working to change consumer attitudes toward THC potency could help, according to the author, but so could standardizing and enforcing lab standards. This goes on the states and likely the feds when they legalize, if they legalize. For our final story, Tilray, Aurora, Canopy, and Curaleaf have all already invested in European cannabis, this in a story from Business Can. But some of them, like Canopy Growth, have already divested some of their European-based assets, opening the door for new players to enter the landscape. Little Green Farmer bought a Danish facility from Canopy for about €15 million below the market value. Canopy also sold C3 Pharma at a loss of about 60% of what it paid in 2019. And in addition to Curaleaf's 2021 acquisition of EMAC Life Sciences for €300 million, Prohibition Partners estimates that another €180 million investments came into Europe last year from North America. There's more on that in the European Cannabis Report put up by Prohibition Partners last week. You can find a link below. Those are the stories we're watching today. Join 12,000 others and catch all of these stories and more in your inbox every day at 7 a.m. Eastern with our Cannabis Daily newsletter. Coming up on BofC Live, a conversation with Daffyd Roderick. He's a Senior Director of Communications and Social Responsibility at the Ontario Cannabis Store, where he will discuss their research into the difference between legal and legacy edibles in the Canadian market and what it means for consumers in Ontario. This is Daffyd Roderick. Hey, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jay. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. I mean, someday maybe see you,
It's
but
only been 3 years since we've been face to face, so
it's funny. It's funny about that. And now that I think back, it was before. I'm going to bring it all around. Are you ready? It was right
yeah,
as 2.0 products were launching in Ontario. We were
yeah,
at your offices at the Ontario Cannabis Store, and
yes, we were.
you had the full array of what was launching. But that was,
Yep,
tell me, was it January 2019,
that was
2020?
that was January
2020.
2020.
Is that right?
I
Am I
know.
wrong?
Yeah. So no, that is right. The edibles were just rolling into the marketplace,
Yeah.
and it was yeah, and that we were doing that for 2 months and 10 days, and then we all went home.
Yeah, it's good. Everybody went home, but
Yeah,
they kept getting edibles and kept buying edibles, which is what we're going to talk about today. We
they have
saw
been. Yeah.
come across our desk, and you guys obviously pushed it out. You guys did some research about edibles on the legal market, edibles on the legacy market, or illicit market, let's call it. Tell us what you found, because I find it very, very compelling.
Okay, so I'll set it up is that we worked with the National Research Council, which is a part of Health Canada, and very well respected laboratory, and with the Ontario Provincial Police. So the OPP, their contribution to the edibles test was they seized 22 products through various enforcement and put those aside. And then we talked with them. We talked to NRC with them. Well, it'd be interesting to do a head-on comparison between what you can get in the legal marketplace and what you can get, through moms and various other suppliers. So NRC said, great. We're going to pick the 22 legal ones. We're not going to tell you what they are, and samples 1 through 22 were the legal ones, and 23 to 44 were the illegals. And what we found was, I think, should leave people feeling pretty confident about what they're buying when they're buying it at an authorized retailer through OCS.ca.
Yeah, and it strikes me, and one of the things that really strikes me is that the potency when you buy from the OCS or a legal retailer in Ontario is that the potency is the potency. When you don't, the potency is really a huge question mark. And I liken it back actually to way back when edibles first came on the market, where people who are experienced consumers said, oh, I usually consume 50 to 100 milligrams of edibles and I'm fine. Get a 10 milligram edible on the legal market now, and are like, whoa, that really hit hard. What's going on? But what's going on is that 100 milligrams or 50 milligrams is not really.
And I think the one truth that came out of this is that when you buy a pack of 500 milligrams or 250 milligrams, that's just a number that's written on paper. There, you really have no clue what the total potency is for what's in the package, and B, no clue what each individual piece is going to carry. And I think when you look at one of the things people really like about an edible product is the ability to control dosing. So we had 8 products from the illicit side that had fewer than 5 milligrams in the total package. So it said 500 on the outside, and what they got was somewhere 1.2, 2.2. So there's next to nothing in them. And we, by and large, what we saw is on average between 16 and 20% accuracy compared to what's written on the label. And I don't think that's should be shocking to anybody. But it really, it leaves you wondering, because if you look to online forums or you talk to people, one of the big rubs they've always had on the edibles that are available through authorized retailers is, well, they're just not as potent. And I think that this test really does a good job of setting aside that argument. It's not, yes, there may be some out there that are potent. I don't know which ones those are, and neither do you.
And neither do they.
Yeah. No.
Right.
No.
Right. And I think
No.
that's part of the value add, or the benefit, obviously, of consuming legal product, is that what is on the label is what's in the product, and there's nothing in the product that's not on the label, which is also an interesting thing. And I liken it back to, like, you just don't know, right? Like you don't know the potency, even if you're only judging on that. If it says 100 milligrams, it may not be, or it may be more, and it may not be evenly distributed through a product. Like all the things that the legal market has been very good at. And
Correct.
frankly, the price, just like everything else, and you guys track it as well, the prices come down on legal edibles. And so while there may be some need to regulatorily increase the potency, the overall in a package, but what's in the package is in the package.
Yeah, and that if we looked at on average, the legal products were 99.8% accurate. So I think one thing, regulation works. The industry has done an incredible job, because that's not easy to achieve. The some of the scientists that we spoke to were pretty wowed that they were able to go from a flower to an extract from the flower to including it in an ingredient of something that also has to taste good, because consumers are not going to eat things that don't taste good or drink things that don't taste good. And we're seeing that now with choices people make. They're like, these I love, those not so much, and it just gets reflected in the sales. But the industry is, I think people can have confidence when they're buying something. And I think as a consumer, we're all very concerned with what we put in our body, and I don't really want to be putting pesticides in that I'm not fully briefed on or aware of. And that's also we saw is 19 out of the 22 products had pesticides that Health Canada limits for use in the production of regulated cannabis.
Right.
And so then that sort of, you back that up. Well, what are they doing with the off flow? Where's how are they managing those pesticides? What are the workers' exposures to those pesticides? Because when you're working in an unregulated industry, I'm sure they're not providing respirators and other things that you should be using those things. But also, when you look at the certificate of analysis for legal dried flower, you don't see those.
Right.
So it's I think it's a really compelling argument for the legal market, and I think that the licensed producers should feel really good about what they're doing.
And it's consistent with, I think there was a report out of New Brunswick. Similarly, I think they were doing dry flower. Like this is, I think, really consistent, and I think is a real testament to the industry, and could be an eye opener for consumers, that this is the way to go. And we know even without this information, the numbers are going in the right direction, right? More people consuming legal product across all categories, both because there's more stores and it's more available and the price point is right and the value is right. And now here's another sort of more in the arsenal to say, like, here's the legal product stand for, and here's what the illicit one. And I guess the question is, because we have you here, like, consumers make choices on all of these things, right? Like you guys know, because you see where they're searching on the OCS and what stores are buying. Like, they are responding to flavor profile, ingredients, and even increasingly so we've seen, and we've talked to some manufacturers around, it's like even the ingredients within the legal edibles, like some are no sugar, some are gluten-free. Like, they're even expanding the range of flavors to be not just blueberry, strawberry, raspberry, like candy flavors, but also more refined. I think there's like apple cider vinegar, there's like a bunch of
apple cider vinegar and pomegranate. There's some really great flavors. And the thing that and I'm going to lose my train of thought because I told you I had a little bit of brain fog going. But the thing that I find really really interesting is there are literally hundreds of different edibles available, and all these companies are competing and bringing their best effort into the marketplace, and consumers are getting the choice. So consumers are really winning right now, I think. In Canadian cannabis consumers and Ontario cannabis consumers, they've got great market access. They've got access to a lot of different products, and they're going to get to pick their favorites. But when we talk about potency and a lack of pesticides, nobody's selling their products on, hey, we're being accurate. Right. And we're not including, harmful things for you. They're selling it on flavor and innovation, and putting it in, being able to do beverages, managing onset. Onsets are really sophisticated nut to crack, and that's not something that you can do in the illicit market. They just don't have the capacity to do that. Whereas we're seeing, really good work on onset in the legal marketplace. So, there's a lot of positives here.
It's great. It's great. I just want to package up this conversation, and we're going to send it to Quebec, where right now I think they have one edible in their whole category on their website. it's like a cookie, right? I think it's something like, it's really just one. You do a search, it's one, and the Montreal Eater just wrote about it. But really, I mean, this is, I think the industry across this country is leaning into it, minus one province. But I really think this really speaks well to the sort of sophistication, the growth, and where this industry is going here in Canada, and where we can lead other places.
Yeah, and we spoke a little bit about this earlier, but the value of regulation, the fact that I'm sure one of the rubs in Canada has been CBD products. Why should they be sold through an OCS or through authorized retailers? Why can't they just be sold everywhere? Well, if this test tells us anything, it's that regulated products deliver exactly what they say they're going to bring. Why? Because there's a license involved, there's inspections involved. You have to follow the rules. It's not really optional.
Right.
So you have to give consumers what they say. Whereas I'm certain that if we were to do a broad study of CBD products available illegally, we would find a lot that are really just oregano oil. And that's,
I think if you're lucky, it's oregano oil.
Yeah, which is actually not bad for arthritis.
Right. It's not CBD, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, worse. Yeah.
I really want to, I appreciate the work that OCS is doing on this front and all fronts. And thank you for your time today. We look forward to connecting down the road. And I am going to send this to the team in Quebec.
Well, good luck. And, hopefully it's not another 2 years and 2 months until I see you.
No, we'll see you before then. We'll definitely see you before then. I appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jay.
That was episode 67 of the Cannabis Daily Show. Thank you for joining us here on YouTube or wherever you caught the program. Please do subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow.